Hey everybody, welcome to the Adobe Live Adobe Spotlight. I'm here with Sydney Michuda, and we are so excited to be bringing you behind the scenes and chatting with her. So Sydney, do you want to say hi? Where are you coming to us from and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am live from my home office here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Um, I run a graphic design branding studio called Super Creative. Lots of branding, illustration, websites, kind of just an everything kind of studio.
She does it all, is what we're hearing here, and she does it amazingly. So I'm seeing people join our stream, which is amazing. So if you're here, please jump in the chat. We have some questions prepared, Sydney and I do to chat through, but this is a great time for you to ask questions. I know I've been asking Sydney questions, and she's been really helping me out. So jump in the chat if you're on Behance and on YouTube. We're happy that you're here, and I'll be doing my best to field those questions and continuing this conversation. So we're really excited that you're here. Welcome to Adobe Spotlight. Sydney, do you want to walk us through your website? I see some amazing things are already on our screen here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, like most designers, I don't always have the most up-to-date portfolio, but yeah, I mean, just gives you like a nice overview of some projects that I've worked on, a nice little testimonial or two. Um, let's see here. Yeah, lots of different work examples on my work page. I'm kind of slowly building my blog up a little bit so I can release more content to other people to gain access to. Um, and then as well, I do have where the heck is that link? Um, a link to be able to sign up for my wait list.
Oh yes, let's definitely talk about that. I know
Yeah,
navigating your own website sometimes can be the most difficult. You're like, I know it's on here somewhere.
right. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, so tell us, what
Uh,
is this?
yeah. So hopefully in March, I will be releasing a branding course where I will teach you as a student how my branding process works from like initial inquiry from a client to the very end where you save all your final files and start other projects. So I have that in the works right now. So if you're interested in signing up for that or just learning more about it, you can go to supercreative.co/link list and then hit that course waitlist button.
That's amazing. I have not put my name in yet, but I'm definitely going to because you're just a genius. So love that. Really quick though, while we're on your site and you briefly like glossed over your blog, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do click the blog, I think that your most recent post is like something that might be familiar. It looks like you were at Adobe Max.
Yeah.
Do you want to
Yeah.
chat a little bit about that? Or I know I got that postcard actually, and I thought it was
Oh,
incredible.
nice. um, yeah, Adobe Max was so cool and fun. I've only been to a few design conferences in the past, but this was my first Adobe Max, and there was so much stuff there. I walked like my suitcase was so jam-packed full with just swag and stuff that I collected from the experience that I purchased there. But yeah, I did a live design session where I designed this little pasta, like dried pasta brand, which was a lot of fun.
So fun.
I was also asked to design a postcard, which is also behind me over here.
Oh, yeah. Wow. It's like
Uh,
TV magic. She said right
yeah.
here. So cool.
um, that postcard was a lot of fun to create. I basically drew the entire thing from start to finish on a flight back from Italy. So it
Oh,
was like a
okay.
9 or 10 hour long flight. So I, yeah, just put my head down and started illustrating. And by the time I landed back in the US, it was done.
Now that is honestly the ideal way to spend some airtime. Here I am and wasting my time watching movies, but you've been productive. Okay, so we are so excited to be like looking at your work, but give us a little of your background. I know you briefly mentioned you do design, you do illustration, but what was your background as a designer? Was it in-house? Did you work at agencies? Maybe I know a little bit more than I'm giving on right now, but tell us about your background.
Yeah, so I graduated from UW Whitewater in 2014, which is like almost 10 years ago, which is crazy. But I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree with an emphasis in graphic design. And I was lucky enough to get a job right out of school. I knew a few people. I also worked really hard on my portfolio, but I started at this one agency called Manifesto in Milwaukee. At that time, they were doing more like experiential marketing, advertising, things like that. Some branding work, but just like kind of a lot of campaigns for larger companies like Intel and Nike and stuff. And the work was really interesting, but after a while, I just kind of realized that kind of work and industry wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to focus more on design at that point in my life. So I left that job and went to another job in Milwaukee, much more of a design focused studio. And that was basically like design boot camp every day, all day, requiring peak creativity, where
Wow.
you might be expected to design 2 logos, a poster, a website, a menu update, social media graphics all in 1 week. So it was a lot being thrown at you all the time. It really improved my skills, which is what I was looking for. But then once the pandemic came, I was laid off from that job because a lot of their clients were in the restaurant and hospitality space, which they all had to close down. So like there was basically no more work for us to do because all the clients were just in such limbo as well. So after that point, I kind of tried to find some full-time jobs just in case, just to have some income. But after a while, once the world started to wake back up again, I realized that I should really give it a go and try to be a full-time freelancer. And I'd say within about 6 months of like from March 2020, when the pandemic really ramped up officially in the United States, to 6 months later, whenever that is, like September, October-ish.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Down the calendar.
Yeah. I pretty much had a full-time schedule of client work that I could take care of, which was really nice that I had a full schedule. I had clients coming in. I had some regulars that I could always rely on just in case my weeks were a little bit light. And yeah, that was like about 3.5 years ago. So it's been almost 4 years of full-time freelance, working under my studio name, Super Creative. Now I kind of have a small team of freelancers that helps me out with my workload because, again, I'm lucky enough and have worked so hard to allow myself to just have a lot of work going on so that I'm able to hand off certain projects to other designers that can help me out.
That's incredible. So you briefly touched on it, which is going to be a great little transition here, but Super Creative is a very fun name and your existing brand. So could you tell us a little bit more about the name, where that came from? And it sounds like that's like your functioning agency. Would you say it's an agency or more so lightly agency, or I'm not sure how you want to position that.
I'm not really sure either yet because to me, agency sounds like a place where you have full-time employees. Everyone has health insurance in an ideal world, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not at that point. I'm the sole employee owner of the business, but I do have like I said, a team of freelancers where they'll either work anywhere between 1 hour a week, maybe sometimes up to 15 hours a week. And I like to just tap into different designers. If I know like someone's really good at illustration, I'll bring them on for a project. If someone's really good at branding, I'll bring them in. So a lot of different options in terms of who I'm going to work with. But and then so I guess that's why I kind of say I'm a studio right now, because it's kind of blurry between like, is it one person or is it a team? So
keep it ambiguous, you know. I don't think you have to be so clear.
Right.
But tell me about the name itself. So how did you come up with it? Because I think it's so fun, and there's a lot to it. So tell us more.
Yeah. So I think it was in 2018 when I was first starting like more freelance work and looking for a way to sell my designs as merchandise and swag and stuff. And I needed a name because I didn't want to just put Sydney Michuda on like my packaging. I wanted to have more of a brand name. And this was right around the time when people realized that millennials say the word super a lot. And then hearing that, I was like, oh my God, I say super all the time. So it just kind of felt appropriate to use or to like go in that direction. But then also, if you think about it, in the creative industry, we use the word creative as a noun as well as an adjective. So if you say like super creative, it's like saying the creative is super.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just a neat little play on words where it sounds like the work that we're doing is super creative, but the creative is also super. So yeah, that's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think it's so fun. I don't know if like what the correct English term is for that. I'm not sure. If you're an English major and you're watching this stream, we're glad that you're here, and please drop it in the comment of what that is, because chat is saying that's so clever. Thank you, Kristen. I agree. That's so fun. Yeah. And I love the symbol you chose, and I haven't branded mine yet. And so mine just says Emily Poulin on everything. And I'm always like, I should probably do something with that. So if I'm super creative, and we're going to try and say super as much as possible on the stream now, as millennials, we'll own that. I love that. So just wrapping up a little bit of your like past here, was there a big transition for you from moving in-house to working like on your own? Like, are there some notable changes that happened for you in that time period, thinking back to it?
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting not having a boss.
Sure.
That like I didn't have to feel that kind of pressure of like, oh my gosh, is this good enough for them? Is this like, what are they going to think? Are they going to get mad that I'm on a phone call or something like that? It was so nice to just have that freedom to be in charge of myself, that
Yeah.
like, if I have a dentist appointment, I can go and do that. I'm not going to get in trouble, or like, I'm not going to be missing work hours or like taking vacation time or something.
Right.
Um, and just having the creative freedom to work for myself, where I can create something, I I like it and I know it's good work, and I can just trust myself and then send that out to a client, rather than going through like 4 different levels of creative directors or art directors or just other people involved. That's really nice and useful in a lot of situations, but if you're just one person and you want to create your own work and push it out, it's very efficient.
Yeah. How was that changing for you then, right? So you're not having that internal structure that kind of like, in some ways shields you from the client, and in some ways makes your life just a little more leveled, I guess would be the word. I don't know how you want to describe that, but how
Yeah.
was that shift for you for interacting directly with the client? Like, is that something that you enjoy? Did you have to get used to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had done a lot of freelance work in the past.
Okay.
So I was kind of used to just emailing clients on a regular basis, having phone calls. My hair's all goofy right now. Um,
You look great.
um, and then at the agency jobs that I'd actually had a lot of experience with the clients too. So
Okay.
I was pretty comfortable with that, but it was something else entirely different when you are the one running the show. Like, I had been in client calls before, but I was never the one that was like managing the project, in charge of creative direction, and actually making the stuff.
Yeah.
So that was kind of weird to be like so in charge in those phone calls. So I definitely had to work my way up to kind of having I don't want to say a script because that sounds scripted, but just having a regular routine of topics to hit, questions to ask, ways to explain things for clients so that everyone's understanding things. But now at this point, I feel pretty comfortable doing all that, where I know what to say, I know how to address any future questions, and just how to keep things nice and organized.
That's incredible. I feel like you're in the initial calls, and you're like, okay, and now my creative director is going to speak, and you're like, oh wait, no one's here. It's just
Yeah, right.
me. I guess it's me again.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So cool. So that's a little bit of your background. And if you're just joining, we're chatting with Sydney Michuda, the owner, creative, and everything behind Super Creative. If you're just joining the stream, please jump in the chat. I'm going to be asking Sydney a lot of questions, which hopefully are very interesting for you and helpful to learn more. But drop any comments and questions you have in the chat. And this will be your direct line, so we can chat about anything, questions, comments, etc. So yeah, let's do that. And then let's move forward then into your work now. So you're saying that you were like the person who is now fielding all the like questions with your clients, doing all the behind the scenes and everything. So do you want to walk us through like some of your work, or like a project that you've worked on recently, or something along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
All right. So I have some projects here, like, and most of these I haven't posted, so they're kind of like a sneak peek. I've never
Ooh.
shown the public these designs before. But on my screen here, let's see, get some of this out of the way. One project, and this is kind of going to be like an overview of what my branding process looks like. So if you're
Awesome.
interested in my branding course down the road, this is some of the information that you'd be getting. And then you get all the kind of background thinking, like how I arrive at these decisions.
Awesome.
But yeah, this will just kind of be that overview. So recently I started working with a brand called Blandford Bicycles. It's a guy that custom builds bicycles. So like this is one of his bike frames, which is, I didn't know that you could really build bikes from hand like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, they're super cool, like just bikes and pieces of machinery in general. So he hired me to do the branding for his brand. And I like to start off by first sending them a brand questionnaire to fill out so I can get as many answers from them as possible. I like to just have them create or fill that out on their own, because
Yeah.
I don't want them to have to think of things on the spot with me on a call.
Right.
So I send it to them. They fill it out on their own time before we start the project. And then with all those answers, I create the brand, or these mood boards. And usually, depending on the client, maybe they have a lot of different examples of inspiration, or there's a lot of different avenues we can hit. sometimes they're a little bit more specific on what they're looking for. So
Sure.
some clients will only get one mood board. Some clients, like this one, will have 3 mood boards because there's more avenues to explore. So I will create just kind of like an explainer page talking about the concept in general, breaking down the typography, colors, graphic elements, and layouts. And then just a single page of that inspiration with the color palette kind of hidden within here.
I like how you did that. That's like super sneaky.
Yeah,
Also,
right?
real quick, do you want to make that window like a little bit bigger? I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
seeing that there's more screen space for us there.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Wow, look at all that. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, so, and this ended up being the direction that we went with. The title was Gold Standard, kind of referring to the fact that within his like it's not welding, it's called fillet brazing process, which you can see right here. It's that like gold brass material and texture to it, and using gold as kind of like like the highest quality you can hold yourself up to, or a product can hold itself up to. Sure. So we use that as like the main brand like visual direction, because his bikes are so superior and they are so well made and like so detail oriented.
That's so cool. Did you ride one of these bikes as you were working on this? Did he give you one to like test out? No, okay.
No, he's based in Portland, so that would have been quite a shipment process.
Yeah. Also, a quick shout out for you from chat. Kristen is saying that she's such a fan of your work, and it's amazing to see your business grow and expand. And we're going to save her question for a little bit later about expanding your team, but just want to let you know you got love in the chat.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. Okay, so this was the first one. This is the one you went with.
Mm-hmm. So then from there, I move on to the logo design phase.
Okay.
And personally, I like to separate the logo design phase from creating the rest of the brand identity, because so many times in the past, especially at other agencies that I'd worked for, you put so much time into creating like the logo and an entirely fleshed out brand. And sometimes you'll create multiple different directions for them only just to be thrown in the trash.
Yeah.
Because you can't approve everything. And to me, that just felt like such a waste of time and energy and creative resources, really. So, and there are many values to the one concept method. Personally, I'm a little bit too indecisive to do the one concept method. So I still like to give them a few different creative logo options. So that's why I break that up into 2 phases. I will include a bit of a description here explaining the decisions that I made. This was the first direction here, and he was really into like custom lettering, so I really wanted to make that a pretty prominent option. So this was hand lettered.
Gorgeous.
So I'll include essentially the primary logo and then maybe a secondary logo and just a few extra little subtle elements aside from that main primary logo.
Okay.
I'll do a couple quick mock-ups, nothing too time intensive, just so they can kind of see it in action.
Smart. Yeah.
And then, I think he got 3 different logo variations. So this one's pretty similar, but just a different typographic style, also hand lettered, with the icon that's the representative of the bike frame. And it also kind of looks like a road map a little bit.
That's genius.
And it's a great shape that can be placed on the badge on the front of the bike here as well.
Right. I was just thinking that. And of course you already thought of it, but that's amazing.
Right. And then the third option, just a little bit cleaner and safer, but we ultimately chose this direction, which I was super psyched with. It's
amazing.
And then from there, once the logo is approved and there are no more edits, usually I'll allow anywhere between 2, sometimes 3 logo revisions, depending on what those are and how drastically we might have to change things. But luckily with this brand, there were barely any changes. It was like change an address or something like that. That was pretty much the only change, which was wonderful for me.
Out of your control anyways. You're like, that has nothing to do with me actually.
Right. Yeah. I just made up an address. But so then from here, I will include the things that we've already decided on and have approved, but then I will basically expand on that. So including secondary logos, and then I'll include everything that was included in the contract that we put together. I love including different brand marks for clients that they can just use for merchandise, social media, websites, because there's so many different like uses for brands and for that you need design assets for. So I just like to kind of go overboard and create a lot of different stuff just because it's cool and interesting and just makes the brand so much richer. So this is his studio that he works from in Oregon. So that was a lot of fun to illustrate. That's like just such a cool building.
It's gorgeous.
This is an example of the fillet brazing process that he uses to create the bikes. And yeah, just like a couple different options, including those as just solo illustrations. I tossed in a few extra smaller icons and illustrations just because they're cool and fun to create.
So I have a question for you. As you are pitching these to your clients, do you do like a breakdown of different levels of branding? Like, I know some people will be like, here's my smallest branding package and here's my largest. Is this like your standard branding package? Because I'm seeing a lot of things in there of like extra marks and extra, like a lot of these things. How do you position that?
So usually I have three branding packages.
Sure.
One that's pretty small that just includes the basics. That one's on the lower price range. We complete it within just 1 week, so it's really quick
Wow.
and intensive, and very efficient. But again, it really only includes the basics of what you would need for a brand. In the middle, I have something that includes more of these options, more brand marks, more secondary logos, and then I have a larger package that's quite close to what this is, what I'm showing you here. And let's see. The only thing, usually my larger package includes like a full round of brand strategy. We didn't opt in for that on this project, but he basically signed on for all the extra bits and bobs like brand marks, illustrations, full color palette, all the secondary logos, as well as this stationery system, some merchandise. I like to include just examples of what a social feed looks like. And then eventually we'll be working on a lookbook, which will kind of like be his catalog that he'll send out to different suppliers and retailers. And then just an example of the website. Even though I haven't really been hired to design the website, I just like to provide an example, usually just like show them what a digital experience of the brand looks like.
This looks great. And just so you know, in Behance, everyone is saying that they're so impressed by your work. They love the marks, that they're very classy. Someone asked you a question that I feel like would be good to interject here, which is, what is your process for developing hand lettered marks?
Yeah, that's a great question. So normally I'll find a bunch of different visual inspiration so I know like what style I want to do and how the letter forms are executed. But then I will open up on my iPad and in a sketch app, I will just usually pretty quickly with the pencil tool, or with a pencil brush, just quickly sketch things out. Then I'll just kind of build it out from there and just make certain strokes thicker, certain things thinner, until eventually I have the rough outline of what all the letter forms look like. And then I'll go in with more of a solid brush, like the marker brush or like a monoline brush or something, and then just really refine it so it's much more solid.
Yeah.
I will bring that into Illustrator, which actually...
Do you have ready for us? Oh my gosh, amazing.
And for certain marks, I wish I had the initial lettering of this available, but normally I make sure that there's a bottom point, a midline, a top line. And so I establish all of these guides and everything. Yeah. And sometimes I'll even establish what the diagonal looks like, just so I can kind of have that as a reference going forward with each letter. Even though they don't always follow the same diagonal, it's nice to just have that estimation. But then, I will come in here with the pen tool, which is always my just tried and true favorite tool in Illustrator.
You have to have it. It's trusty.
Yeah, exactly. But within this mark, I wanted this to just be like super duper. See, I said super again.
I was gonna say we got one super. Put a check.
Really exact and specific with the anchor points and then all the handles and everything. So pretty much everything that's a top point here is about going to be on whatever degree angle that is. Like let's say 36 degrees or something like that.
That's what I was thinking too.
All going to be very similar in the direction that it goes. That way it's just consistent within every mark and there's no bit of this that's like doing that or just like not accurate, I guess. So I always kind of like to make sure that everything follows relatively like a 45-degree system. So
Yeah.
everything kind of is on the same anchor points, if that makes any sense to other people.
I'm
It always
following,
makes
I
sense to me.
think.
Yeah.
But if you asked me to do it, I don't know if I could, but I think I'm following.
Yeah. Like the way in this circle, how everything
Right.
is kind of at the same diagonals, it just kind of helps things be more uniform.
Definitely.
But yeah, then I just kind of vectorize this entire thing with that pen tool, just creating as much as possible. And then touching up any like weird anchor points that I might have missed. And then, yeah, applying it to the rest of the brand and seeing how it looks. And then again, if there's anything goofy that I missed.
Have you ever gotten so far and then you look back and you're like, how did I miss that one anchor point looking like so crazy?
Oh my God, absolutely. And that's like my nightmare all the time.
Right.
Like I've painted a few like logos and murals for clients in the past, and I just
Wow.
sometimes I hate looking back because I'm like I know I'm gonna notice some sort of like kerning issue or some spacing, and I don't want to look
So
at it.
that's
Yeah.
so funny. Okay, we have a similar question from chat, which is, or not similar, I guess, but it's a little more behind the scenes of what's your process for creating your illustrations? Do you have favorite tools, which I know you shout out the pen tool
Hmm.
for lettering, but and then do you use reference photos, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, it really depends on the illustration style that I'm going for. Because personally, I consider myself a designer first and then an illustrator second.
Mm,
And I guess with that distinction, really, I mean that I'm able to adapt my style to whatever is needed for the client or the project.
yeah,
So I love being able to just change my style up a whole lot. As you can probably, if you've looked at my Instagram, there's a whole lot of different um, styles that I like to create. I'm trying to come over here just to show on my Instagram really quick,
love it.
um, just some of those different styles and how I would approach the different processes. Um, so yeah, I guess if we take this postcard as an example, really what I did, because this is a lot more hand drawn looking. I never even vectorized this. I just drew it straight on my iPad in a sketch app, and then exported it to Illustrator, and then just made sure it was 300 DPI so it could be printed, because this is
Definitely.
a print piece. Um, some things that do require to be vectorized, I'll use different methods and different apps and everything to get the vectors where they need to be. And then once they are in Illustrator, I'll usually come in with the smooth tool, which
Ooh,
is
yes.
over here. I used to think that the smooth tool was like kind of cheating. Um, but that was me when I was being a snob. Now I think it is perfectly valid to use that smooth tool. Just because like there are sometimes when you vectorize something, there are going to be thousands of anchor points and you
Yeah.
can't touch every single one. And nor should you, especially if you're trying to have something that still looks hand drawn. But that's, yeah, for more like hand drawn styles. Certain things like the styles in these illustrations, these are much more like geometric and minimal and specific.
Yeah.
So these were better to actually create with vectors. So again, this is his home studio. So I drew this on my iPad, exported it into Illustrator, and then with the pen tool, just kind of coming around and connecting all these pieces and making sure that everything fits properly and kind of just hits all those right marks. And with a style like this, I always make sure that the line widths are always the same, even though that's kind of
Major.
a funky number. That's such an easy way and simple way to make your illustrations look intentional and just better. Is just, and that is if you're going for a monoline style like this,
Right.
is always making sure the line widths are always similar, because if just some of these lines are super thick and chunky, it's just going to look very chaotic and unorganized.
So for something like this, are you using a reference photo? Oh yeah, thank you for that example. That's
Oh yeah.
very the visual.
Yeah.
Are you using a reference photo for, I mean, it seems like these are really technical things. Yeah, I'm seeing some bikes over
Mhm.
here too. Oh, is that the shop? Yeah, okay,
Yeah, that's the
awesome.
shop. So yeah, I just kind of use this as an example. And let's see. Yeah, so some of these I have great visual references for. Other things like this fillet brazing process, this is not at all how a professional should probably hold these tools. They'll probably get burnt. But certain things like this, I'll have to just kind of make up the reference on my own.
Sure.
A lot of the time, what I really like to do is, especially because for some reason I end up drawing hands all the time, which is annoying because they're like the most difficult thing to draw.
Right.
But with stuff like this, what a lot of the time what I'll do is I'll take a picture of my own hand in like a
Yep.
certain pose, usually like holding a pen or something like that. And I'll take a picture of my hand doing that so I know exactly like where the joints are and how everything looks. Usually I don't really ever trace anything directly, especially when you want something stylized like this.
Right.
Tracing can make it not quite as fun or stylized looking. But usually I'll have reference photos for what I'm looking to do, but nothing that's like directly under my stylus.
So your hands were the ones that were modeling this. So you've actually like done the welding yourself now and like
Yeah.
all the project things yourself. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So if you want to walk us through a little bit more of this project, or if there's any other projects that you want to show us as far as
Oh
like
yeah.
what your illustration process looks like of like how you start, how you finish it, how you deliver to clients, anything in that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you
Um,
have more to show, so
yeah. All right. Well, I showed all these guys, so I'll just get rid of them. And a few other projects that I've been working on. And then, yeah, just
please.
that things that that I haven't posted anywhere before. This one is for a woman, Brandy Devers Russo. She's an interior stylist, but she's also kind of building herself to be like more of a lifestyle brand where she has blog posts, video content, all this stuff, hopefully a cookbook in the future.
Oh,
Um, and this was an awesome project where I got to collaborate with a few different members of my team. I created the initial design direction, and then I passed off a lot of the work to one of my designers, Joyce, who's so good. And she was such a perfect fit for this project because she has such like an elegant, refined style, which is exactly what we needed.
that looks great.
Um,
Would you mind making it just like a tad
oh
bit
yeah,
bigger as we're
absolutely.
looking? And shout out Joyce. Also, chat is referencing, which maybe is a good thing to reference as well, your other Adobe Live where you were doing your branding process for the Pottery brand, which I
Mhm.
heard via you that it went pretty viral at some point. So yeah, definitely go check out Sydney's other stream as well. And we have one question, and I don't know if you want to answer it in here, but do you have any advice of how to improve creating a custom lettering and logo type?
Um, trying to think
I know it's a big,
how do
it's a
I
big
yeah
question.
how to improve it. I guess um, practice always helps, especially when you're
Yeah.
doing something like that. Like I remember the very first times that I tried doing hand lettering, it was so bad, and
Show us the
I couldn't.
photos. I'm just
Oh my
kidding.
God. If you go on my Instagram and scroll all the way down to when I first started designing, you'll see how egregious some of those lettering options were. But
I love it.
they like I just couldn't figure out why they looked bad, and that
Yeah.
was just because I didn't have enough experience to like tell the difference.
Mm.
So the more experience you have, the easier it is to notice where the mistakes or the issues are. And it also just really helps when you can send it to other designers, because if you're looking at something for hours and hours, you're not going to be able to notice that like the R looks funny or something. So
Yeah.
that if you send it to someone else, they'll be able to see that right away.
Or they're like,
Um,
hey, it's misspelled. You're like, oh my gosh, I
yeah,
had no idea. I've just been looking at
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really great to just have that network of people that you can always send some of your rough drafts to, just to be like, does this look
Yeah.
ridiculous or is this
Do
okay?
you hate this? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like have a good reference of people around you and just practice and start looking at
Mhm.
other artwork too. It sounds like too, right? To reference and be like, okay, am I improving and training your eye? It seems.
Exactly.
Love that.
Yeah. So within this project here, I or did sorry, I'm
You're good.
mixing up my words. Joyce decided that it might be nice to have this kind of etched style logo. And I had tried that illustration style a few times. So then I jumped in and created the icon myself. I did all that illustration while she created the rest of the logos and everything else. So I got to help out a little bit with the main icon. She then designed the rest of the secondary marks, which are all super beautiful. Um,
Wow, this is beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. And then with these brand illustrations that she had included in her package, I personally did not have the time to draw all of these
It's a
anymore.
lot of
So,
lines. Yeah.
yeah. So I passed this off to another designer on my team, Hannah, who is an incredible illustrator.
I
Basically,
could
like
tell.
anything that I throw at her, she like instantly nails the first time. So that's really
Wow.
great. So then she jumped in and helped create all these illustrations. Um, and then, yeah, just continuing to assemble the brand identity. Her brand got a lot of these really fun vintage patterns that we found that were available for free for use
Ooh.
online. And normally I always try to create and design and illustrate all of our own assets and brand patterns and things like that. But this style is so ornate that it would have taken me hundreds of hours to do. So let's find that
Yeah.
online so it still feels authentic and historical. So yeah, that's a little bit of this brand here. What else?
I love that.
This brand, which I will make this PDF bigger.
Amazing. She's already on it.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you a question going into this. It's easy to get lost during projects, especially when you're unsure of the process. Do you have any tips or hacks for your design process, or things that make it easier?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite things that I always do, and I always recommend to other designers that don't always have the most organized process yet, is to just write everything down as often as you can. And usually, kind of like the way I like to separate the logo design from the brand expansion phase, I like to separate some of the concepting and ideation from the actual creation phase. Because when you're like trying to think of things while you're also designing and building, it just, for me, it's almost too many things happening in my brain at that time.
Yeah.
So usually what I like to do, I wonder if there's an example in this Illustrator file.
I have faith. I bet there is.
Let's see. I mean, you can see some of these these lists floating around here.
Ooh, that's what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, like over here, I didn't want to have to just think of these illustrations on the spot. So I wrote down lists of illustrations or like
Smart.
different copywriting phrases that I can incorporate into these brand marks. Usually I will always have a list on the side of things to do or things to make. Like, well, actually, you can see some of those labels on the side here of like, include the brand marks, include the illustrations,
Smart.
bike mock-up and head badge, t-shirt mock-up and hat. So like that way I know what has to be done without like introducing all that guesswork of like, well, what do I even do now? What should I even create?
Someone tell me what to do, please.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Just listen to yourself from like 2 days ago.
Yeah, right.
But and usually I'll do that a lot with the logo creation phase as well. When I'm looking for inspiration or for the mood boards, while I'm saving inspiration, I'll just write down a whole lot of ideas. Like maybe the house is floating into the rug, or maybe there's an icon where the rug looks like a house, or just like I'll write down different little ideas. That way, once it comes time to actually design everything, I have a list of ideas ready for myself. So it's not so scary and overwhelming.
Right. And so are you thinking of these like as you're working, or is this like something that you have ahead of time, or is it kind of like a little mix of both?
A little bit of a mix of both, I would say.
Sure.
It's nice to have those ideas as like a bank that I can always reference.
Right.
But then also let myself just like freely create and just like see what colors work, see what line works can change and things like that. So it's a nice balance of both.
I love that. Also, everyone in chat is just raving about those illustrations and the type pairings from the last one. They're like, these are gorgeous. And they definitely are. Just to let you know all the love you're getting in chat.
Oh, nice. Thanks, everybody. But yeah, with this brand, they are an e-commerce rug company. They're kind of positioning themselves against Wayfair and Rugs USA and stuff like that. They shipped me one of their rugs, and it's actually very nice quality.
I love when that happens.
But yeah, they got a bunch of brand marks as well. They got a huge set of illustrations for different rug sizes, different rug attributes like their quality and affordability and things like that. And then different rug styles, which was kind of difficult to parse out the difference between Persian, Moroccan, Bohemian, floral, and farmhouse.
You don't know those off the top of your head?
Oh, no, yeah.
These are so fun. I feel like I could see these definitely on packaging, on the website, on an like info card. These are gorgeous.
Yeah. And with these, I kept them all as raster illustrations. I didn't bother vectorizing them because then we would have lost a lot of that like hand-drawn quality and texture. Yeah.
I love that.
But yeah, just kind of including all the rest of those assets that I generally do. They have a lot of packaging needs, so I included a lot of those.
Oh, wow. Gorgeous. Yep.
Social media examples. And yeah, you can see those illustrations being used as like the Instagram highlights.
Perfect.
Yeah, lots of different stuff.
Packaging.
I can't wait to release this one. I think I'll probably be posting about this next week or the week after. So
stay tuned.
This now, yeah, it's a little sneak peek.
I love that. So how did you get, I'm sorry if I wasn't paying attention, but how did you come in contact with this client? So I know that a lot of freelancing is difficult sometimes of like finding the right clients and meeting them and getting introduced and all that. So from your experience or even particularly with this client, like how do you go about that?
Yeah. So in the past, I used to get a lot of my clients from Instagram where they would
Uh-huh.
just like DM me or they would follow me. And then like a year later, then they would reach out and want like a brand identity, a logo, a website, things like that. Recently, I've been getting a lot of new inquiries from Behance, actually,
Ooh,
because on Behance, you can get like your projects featured. I wonder how quickly I can pull up my Behance page.
I bet super
Um,
quickly.
oh my gosh, where'd it go?
Oh, I
There we
spoke too
go.
soon.
Yeah.
Perfect.
um, but luckily, I've had a few projects that have been featured with these little Behance tags in like Illustrator or branding and stuff. And whenever those features happen, I get so many more inquiries, which is really, really nice. It's just like a really wonderful place where you can experience other design work. You can include, or other clients can find you. So this La Home client here, they found me through Behance. Um,
Amazing.
so we kind of discussed the entire like estimate process. And then once we were ready to move things forward and had the project actually under works, we just started everything through email then.
Okay.
I started correspondence that way.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I've gotten a lot of really wonderful clients through Behance. It's just, I don't know how they found me or where or why, but they messaged me and then we hit it off and got the project rolling.
And here she is. I would say this is a good time to say if you're not already following along on Behance, definitely follow Sydney and then follow Adobe Live on Behance
Mhm.
as well as on Instagram and all the places that be. I think YouTube as well. Definitely connect on those fronts because that's always where the new things are happening. So we love that.
Mhm.
I'm seeing the Pottery, the famous Pottery branding. Is that correct? Do you want to touch on
Yep.
that briefly since we're here and
Yeah,
give a shout
sure.
out to your other Adobe Live?
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Um, yeah, so this is the brand that I created in like 2020, I believe, where I did my very first Adobe Live in November of 2020. Um, and that was back when Adobe Lives were over two-hour sessions. So basically,
Wow.
I was on camera for about
For
4 hours.
4 hours. Yep.
Yeah. So people got to really see a lot of the ins and outs of the branding process that I
Yeah.
had at that time. And I was lucky enough that this was one, such a cool project with such a cool client, and it was real. Sometimes it's hard to find clients that are willing to have their stuff like experimented with live on
Right.
camera. So this was one of those lucky opportunities where she was totally fine with everything. But created the
Did
logo. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. Did you approach that with her? Were you like, hey, I want to do this on Adobe Live, or like, how did that conversation look?
Yeah, so basically I had been asked to do the Adobe Live and I realized like, oh my God, I need to find a client to do this with. And she had reached out maybe like a few weeks before the live and I just kind
Mm,
of threw it at her like, hey, would you be interested in this? Please let me know as soon as possible.
yeah.
Also, do you want to work with me? I don't know.
If you do
Uh,
want to work with me, now you have to do it. Just
right,
kidding.
exactly. And she discussed it with like people close to her and decided that it would probably be good marketing and like kind
Yeah.
of free advertising, which I hope it was. Um,
Get back to us if you're watching, please.
yeah, exactly. And I still work with the owner Sam to this day. So
Oh,
whenever she has new kits that come out, we'll handle the instructions, or if she has different campaigns or event graphics that she needs, we'll help her out with those as well. Um, it's always great to have repeat clients.
definitely. Sounds like a repeat Adobe Live, maybe too, just putting it out
Yeah.
there. People in the comments are saying that some of those were the very first Adobe live streams they ever watched, and that's
Yeah.
what got them hooked. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. This looks amazing. Yeah, I understand why it went so viral. I have to go watch it. I haven't seen it, but I need to.
It's it's a lot of live to watch. It's like again almost 4 hours, but I think YouTube does a really good job now of kind of highlighting where the good bits are, so you can kind of like pull forward a little bit.
Amazing. Oh, and Cody is going to put the link in the chat so people get what they're looking for here. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you. That looks
But
awesome. So
yeah.
you were just introduced through Behance, it sounds like, which is incredible. Is there, and you said currently, actually, sorry, are you getting more people through Instagram or are you seeing like a difference anywhere?
I'd say a majority of my clients right now come through either Behance or word of mouth.
Word
So
of mouth, right? Okay.
whatever that kind of means, whether it's a referral from someone or like someone sent my profile to someone on Instagram or something. That's kind of word of mouth as well.
Yeah.
So really those are the two biggest ones. Instagram is great just for like general brand recognition, just like have my stuff out there and just so people can see it over and over. Again, trying to post more on my blog, my newsletter as well. And then I'm hopefully eventually going to start more longer form video content like this on
Cool.
YouTube, where I like share how I conceptualize illustrations, or I share how I pick color palettes or something like that. Because you can't really gain a whole lot from a 30-second Instagram reel. I want people to like get a little bit more information out of that.
Right. Yeah. And if they like that, there's more, that's
Yeah.
perfect. I love that. So it sounds like you're also doing like a lot of networking behind the scenes with this a little bit. Some of it you're doing, some people are doing it for you. Is there a way that you approach networking or building community within the creative community?
Yes and no. I've always been really bad at networking. I just like, personally, I always feel like I'm just bothering people, but I know that is never the case. Because when people will often reach out to me on Instagram and just shoot me a question or just reach out and say hi. And I admire them so much for doing that, because like I'm always too much of a chicken to actually do that with other people.
Right.
But I'd say so most of the networking that I do is from people reaching out and connecting with me,
Sure.
which is great because then it feels like you have those Instagram friends or those social media pals.
Right.
Yeah, and like it's always nice to just have those connections, because maybe one day down the road they end up working for an agency. They have a custom, like a really specific project where they need like vector illustrations that look like whatever style this is, like something mid-century modern, and
So
they'll remember, oh, she did that thing. Let's hire Sydney because I follow her on Instagram or something like that. So it's just kind of nice to have those low-key connections.
Definitely.
And the professional ones too, where like you work with different agencies and freelance for people like that.
And it's like a little bit more formal, but it's always like the casual recommendation that goes a long way too.
For sure.
I love that. Well, on a note about posting something that looks like that, right? When someone sees that and they're like, "Oh, we should ask her to do that." Do you want to touch on like posting the kind of work that you want to get, or in your experience with that, like is there work that you weren't getting that you wanted to get and then you posted and now you do? Any moments like that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of one of my other big like design industry kind of tips is
Tell us.
that like the world really doesn't know what you're capable of until you show them. So it's so important to post the kind of work that you want to get hired for. Even if it's not a real client, it's like totally fair game to post things that aren't real. Like kind of a more recent example for me, the last Adobe Live that I did was for this like dry packaged pasta.
So fun.
This was not a real client. I definitely did not get that name trademarked or anything like that. But I created this in hopes that hopefully in the future I will be getting some kind of food packaging client, because I would love to work on more food projects.
Ooh, just saying.
Right.
If anyone's listening.
Yeah. But I guess in more of like a real experience that happened, I used to work with a lot of people in the wedding industry. I think at one point I worked with a wedding photographer. I designed her brand, and then she must have shared my name with someone else, and who shared my name with someone else and someone else. And then a year or two later, I'd worked with like 10 wedding photographers because they saw that I had done work for someone similar, and then they just wanted to hire someone that knew the industry, that had done that kind of work in the past, and that enjoyed that style. And that's usually the route that I took for a lot of my early work. If we scroll super duper far back, just like just experimenting with different styles and everything, hoping that like, well, if I do something funky like this, maybe that'll hopefully allow me to get hired for something else within a similar style.
Totally.
Just kind of experimenting with things and posting and playing around with whatever works.
I love that. So chat is asking, do you have any tips to start posting your work on Instagram? I still find it really daunting, and a few people also feel that way. So do you have like a secret to doing that, or any tips on that?
I mean, when I first started posting, I think it was probably like in 2015 when the stakes were a lot lower. But really, for me, I started posting because I just felt like I was not being creatively satisfied by the jobs that I had at that point.
Sure.
So I just started posting anything. Like I think literally the very first illustration that I posted was just like the stuff that was on my desk that day.
I'm so excited to see this.
Yeah. And it's, oh my gosh, it's
You don't have to
so,
find it if it's so
oh,
far
I know.
back.
It's so basic compared to like the stuff that I am more used to now. But
Sure.
it was, again, just the stuff that I had on my desk. I just decided to go for it. Like this illustration and this lettering is so rudimentary, but like it worked. People saw it. They wanted that kind of thing for their logos or for their illustrations. Yeah, I just post whatever you can. There's no one's really paying that much attention, which is nice, but also kind of a bummer that like you can just post it and let it go and just kind of continue to build your portfolio and your social media.
There was a time in my own branding that my website was just so neglected. I would just send people my Instagram and I was like, this is my like working portfolio. Like here's just some stuff I've been working on. Cause I feel like that level of entry is like lower in some senses, right? And it's like
Mhm.
you can't, do or die off of an Instagram post really. And so I would try and be like, it's my working portfolio. So I would say just
Yeah.
like post things that you're working on, post things that are interesting, or even not interesting, because it's gonna find someone who finds it interesting. And I feel like that's major, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, and maybe don't think too much about it. Or do you ever post like not like behind the scenes, but like smaller details instead of like the whole thing? Like take like a mark that you were using and just post that, or like parsing it out in some way to like get volume maybe.
Yeah, that's something that I definitely need to do better with. I have a bad habit of just like cramming so much content into like one post to
A
be like,
carousel, you're like,
yeah, like here's an official brand reveal, everything that went into it. When it's like, no, it would be more effective and better for me if I space it out over a few different
sure,
posts. Like this one here, I posted the icon first with just like a
cute.
few different color variations, just so that there's something extra to look at. And then the next post, then I posted the entire, like the full brand. So the main icon or the main logo there, monogram,
Cute.
menus, where you can see that icon still tucked away within the post. But
Sure.
yeah, trying to space things out a little bit. But yeah, I always just want to show everyone everything right away.
Right? You're like, and now it's done. Do you like it? And you're like,
Right.
wait, what if we built up to that instead?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Okay, so we're kind of getting a little bit close to the end of our time here. So I just want to open it up and say, chat, if you have any last minute questions, drop them in and we'll see if we can get to them. But is there any advice that you want to give people as they're starting out, just in their design journey in general? Free space here.
Yeah. In the past, I did this like in-person talk or something with
Ooh,
college students, and I made this entire presentation. And the last slide of the presentation is basically all the tips that I had covered within that presentation. So
that's
this
a
is that
lot.
last slide.
It's amazing. So
Yeah,
screenshot this maybe or
yeah,
journal about
exactly.
it. I'm not sure. I love it. Walk us
Yeah.
through it. Yeah.
So it basically kind of just like starts out with the first tips that I realized in my career. So like seek out jobs and connections within and without and outside of your industry. Like I met a lot of people in the business department at Whitewater, and so many of those connections led to freelance work and jobs down the road. Um, let's see, it's all right to change your goals, paths, and expectations. I never thought
Ooh.
that I would be a full-time freelancer, but here I am, and this
And
is
doing
what I want
great.
to do.
Yeah.
Communicate frequently with your clients. Um, try to keep your portfolio up to date. Learn how to write about your work. That's super duper important. Um, Understand how visual systems work. So how clients are going to be using those assets and how you can show them how to properly use those assets. Um, let's see. Um, Sometimes to me, great work means concept plus style plus proper execution.
Ooh.
Um, let's see. Track your time. Always track your time in a time tracking app. It just helps you know how long things are taking.
Yep.
Um, and then the most important, get an accountant.
If
Don't
you
do
walk away
your
with
own
nothing
taxes.
else.
Yeah, don't do
Yes.
your own taxes. If you're full-time freelance, absolutely get an accountant. It's just so much easier and it's really not that expensive. And
I
they'll save you
believe.
so much money down the road.
I love that. Last minute question here. Any tips for making your portfolio stand out? What do you look for when like hiring somebody?
I guess I really like to see how you can think through an entire project, and I love
Mm,
being able to see people that create brands really well because that's the thing that I do the most of. So I love seeing really properly designed brand identities and portfolios, and I like to see not like don't just post just the logo, especially like not on a white background. Um, Show the entire brand, like how it started, what the concept was, show secondary logos, brand marks, color palettes, the type system, as many mock-ups as you have the time to create that still add to the concept and the benefit of the portfolio piece. But it just helps to be able to see that you can think through the entire process of a brand and not just like slapping a logo on something and calling the project done.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I love that. Well, Sydney, it has been such a pleasure to host you. Thank you so much for all your tips, your tricks, your art, everything that you've shown us. It has been such a wonderful time. Chat, thank you for being here. Definitely stay on the stream. So Izzy is going to be up next. I heard that there's going to be pizzazz on a zine. So whatever that means, we're really excited to see that. Just kidding. Definitely stick around right here on Adobe Live. And then this Artist Spotlight, I'm going to be hosting this for the next 4 weeks of February. So from 12 to 1 Pacific time, or in the future, if you're on the East Coast time, definitely join in, and I will be here hosting the Spotlight. But this was so much fun. Thank you for joining. And Sydney, you were amazing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for everyone joining.
All right, take care.
See ya.